You're listening to the Rebel Rebel podcast with Rory Carson. Tasha Vigeshdak, leis an fod Curly Rebel Rebel, le Rory McCarson.
You build your barriers. The taller I become, the more that you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can't deny me, you can't decide to turn your face away, no matter 'cause there's something inside so strong. And I know that I can make it. You're doing me wrong, so wrong. I thought that my pride was gone. Oh no. Something inside so strong. Oh no. Something inside so strong. The more you refuse to hear my voice, like I will sing. You hide behind your walls of Jericho, your lights will come tumbling. Then I'm a blessing time. You squander wealth that's mine. My light will shine so brightly it will blind you. Something inside so strong. I know that I can make it. You're doing me wrong, so wrong. I thought that my pride was gone. No, no. Something inside so strong. Something inside so strong. Oh, no, no, no. Something inside so strong. Sisters, when they insist we're just not good enough, but we know better. We'll just look him in the eyes and say, we're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. We're gonna do it anyway. 'Cause there's something inside so strong. And I know that I can make it. You're doing me wrong, so wrong. Thought that my pride was gone. Oh no. Something inside so strong. Our day is coming. Something inside so strong. Our day is coming. Something inside so strong. Oh, chalk the heart up. Something inside so strong.
Well, folks, hello and welcome to the Rebel podcast. It's a very special midweek edition here. We're normally live on a Sunday, Rebel Sundays, but here we're here on our very first sit-down interview in about a year due to COVID. So we're joined tonight by the legendary West Belfast Republican figure, Fran McCann. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Rory, for inviting me.
I turn your make it a bit closer to you. Go ahead there.
Thank you very much, Rory, for inviting me.
So welcome along to the Republic of Leonardtown up here. It's a bit high up for you, so it is.
Indeed, the air's thinning out.
Yeah, so folks, we're on YouTube and Facebook. Well, Facebook for now until the knock is off. They've been quite naughty the last few weeks. So, but we should be on YouTube throughout the whole night. Folks, you can also comment during this and sort of we'll put maybe some stuff to Fra if we can fit it in, right? So here we go. So Fra, first tell me this, coming from a very sort of large family of 10 children, starting out living in sort of, dare I say, very cramped shared accommodation. What's your sort of earliest memories of that house then? Like?
Well, see, I've a few memories. I was born nicely in the market, and we lived in a lodging house. My mother, my father, myself and my two sisters. There was 5 families lived there in the house, and we were fortunate enough that my father won the pools and bought a house in Albert Street in the Falls. My father was from McDonald Street in the Falls, and my mother was from Market Street. And so some people say I had divided loyalties in terms of parochialism.
Right.
But yes, the house was cramped. You often wondered the house had a parlour in it, very well done up with the radiogram with everything in it. But we all slept in the back of the house, and I used to say, I remember saying to my mother, why did we have the parlour and the thing? He says, well, you always kept it for visitors coming, and that was in case the priest or somebody else came round into the house and paid it a visit. But although you lived in cramped conditions, it was a happy house.
So obviously you were for a long time known as a very proud Republican from a lot of people say down the lower Wick. Obviously wouldn't say Lower Falls. My mum would come up and slap me, so she would, like, with her Divis roots.
Your mother lived up the street from me, in Albert Street, yeah.
So obviously, would your family and your parents, I mean, have been a Republican family, like, growing up in the early days, or?
No, they would have been more nationalist than Republican, and I think it was after 1969 that their politics grew, and I think my mother worked 2 jobs. My father was out working, trying to get the money to raise a family. That my father would have had very, very strong opinions on the national subject, especially.
Right. So obviously, you sort of said we were sticking to Joe Austin there, and was it last year you recorded that? Was it earlier? A few months ago?
It was about 2 months ago.
You sort of mentioned to him that your sort of very first sort of venture into republicanism and the sort of kind of militant structure was joining the Fianna Éireann. So it was, so obviously, sort of, I played with the O'Neill Alsop band for about 6 years. And obviously that band is named after 2 Fianns, Jim O'Neill and Robert Alsop. Yeah. And obviously, from what I've heard, them 2 guys came to sort of very harrowing deaths. Yeah. So they did, sort of, unfortunately. So obviously, without going into too much, like, what sort of, like, structures, and I mean, that sort of...
There's a couple of things that just as I run into that, you know, I was 16 in 1969 when the Falls was attacked, and many other areas across Belfast. You know, there were what we would class in the wider circle, neighbours attacked, their homes burnt, and we came through that at a young age, like many thousands of other young people. You had to defend your area, and you'd have been out certainly trying to first of all fight loyalism and unionism off, but then the RUC. Then within a short period after that, there, you know, you had the Falls curfew, where you had 3,000 British soldiers who cordoned off the Falls area. There were a number of people shot dead and hundreds arrested. So there was a number of events that led me to make that decision. And I think it was after internment, I'd been given serious consideration. Not only me, because I had a group of friends, and we would have knocked about Ross Street and Collins Street and Lemon Street, and we'd had discussions about it. At the time, we were about 16, going into 17, and we tried to join the army, the IRA, that is, and for whatever reason we were turned down at that time, and afterwards we decided that we would go into the Fianna, first of all to see what we can do, but secondly as a passage through into the IRA. Right.
So obviously you sort of said after you left school you got a job in a hotel in Dunmurry, trained to be like a silver service waiter. So did you have sort of any aspiration to do that as a career, like, or going to be like a restaurant manager or something further on down the line, or?
Well, there was 2 things happened. My father had known a friend who was working in a hotel business, right, and he had asked, and he got me the job, and to be honest. Thinking back on it, you know, I remember there was an advertisement in the paper about for apprentice plasterers, and I remember it was down off High Street, and I went in to make an application, And again, the same old story, about filling the form and about where you come, what school you went to, and things like that. And I never heard anything else about it. No, they at one stage, myself and friends were talking about possibly immigrating as we got on. Australia seemed attractive
right,
as well. It seemed attractive at that time. But there were many people from Belfast that went on the road to Australia.
Right, okay. So you had no aspirations to be sort of like a manager in a restaurant. It was just sort of a job at the time, just to sort
just
of...
a job came up.
To fill
and in fact, I tell my daughter that my wage at the time was the equivalent of about £1.70
a week?
A week, and obviously it was before decimalisation.
I think there's something about Mike Isley's paying now, his staff in Sports Direct, so there's something like that there. Right, so listen, obviously, Fra, folks, has picked 4 songs well tonight, so we're going to break the interview up. So we're going to go with the first song, and then we'll actually go on with the interview. So, Fra, what's the first song you've picked to play this evening?
The first song is 90 Miles from Dublin Town, and the song means a lot to me. And it's first of all, it's Christy Moore. Secondly, it's about the blanket protest, and thirdly, I wasn't off the blanket that long. Myself and a guy called Ned Brown and Kieran Nugent, both who have now passed on, and it was set up for us to speak to Christy Moore, and we went in, I remember well, into the McDermott's club in the front of the Falls Road there, now closed, and we'd done hours and hours and hours of interviews about the blacks, about the beatings, about the searches, the great insurgents, and what it was like to be in the Hates Blacks.
So is this his research into doing the song then?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I think within a couple of weeks he had done 90 Miles from Dublin
Right.
Town on the package. Strangely enough, Christy, I would keep in touch with him now and again, and I've a terrible lot of respect for him, because I know that the work that he had done in terms of his music, in terms of in and around that period for the prisoners. And so I have a lot of respect for him. He sent me up his latest record, or
I heard he was releasing something.
1969 to 1981.
It's a compilation of all the earlier stuff. Yeah.
And so he sent me a signed copy of that.
Brilliant.
Up.
Very good.
And I've been at a few of his concerts. Let me know. He sent me up and just says, "I've left tickets at the front. Go up, come up."
I've been the one, and it must have been the only one that went. He played all the shit songs. Sometimes people who says, you go, he played this and that, and they're going like, well, the night I went, he played all these songs, and must have been his new album he wanted to play or something.
We were in, just as you mentioned that, we were in, my partner's sister bought us tickets for the one of his shows, and it was in the Clonry Hotel in Letterkenny.
Right.
And my daughter bought us an overnight. And we went up, and I'd phoned, I sent a wee message to him, and he says, look, well, I'll keep you a couple of good seats. And we gets in, and he came down, was talking to us, and we had started the concert, and he was on. He has one of these songs that I don't know whether you ever heard it, called "I Hate Politicians."
Yes, he's on the Late Show as well. I remember him singing that. Yeah.
And he got on, and he was halfway through his concert, and he was singing it, and we were all cheering. And he's saying, "I hate politicians."
And he's looking at you.
He says, "Except from McCann."
Very good. Right, so folks, we're going to do the first song of the episode. This is Christy Moore with 90 Miles Dublin Town. Here we go.
I'm 90 miles from Dublin Town. I'm in the hedge block cell. To help you understand me plight, the story now I'll tell. I'm on the blanket protest. My efforts must not fail, for I'm joined by men and women in Rakesh and Armagh. It all began one morning I was dragged to Castlereagh, and though it was 3 years ago, it seems like yesterday. For 3 days kicked and beaten, I then was forced to sign confessions that convicted me of crimes that were not mine. Sentenced in a Diplock court, my protest it began. I could not wear their prison gear, I was a blanket man. I'll not accept their status, I'll not be criminalized. That's the issue in the blocks for which we give our lives. Over there in London town, oh how they'd laugh and sneer if they could only make us wear their loathsome prison gear. Prisoners of war is what we are, and that we must remain. The blanket protest cannot end till status we're again. I've been beaten round the romper room because I won't say sorry. I've been frog-marched down the landing and dragged back by the hair. I've suffered degradation, humility and pain. Still the spirit does not falter, British torture is in vain. I've been held and scalded in water while my skin with X-grubs was torn. I've been scratched and cut from head to foot, then thrown out on the floor. I've suffered mirror searches, been probed by drunken bears. I've heard my comrades cry and scream, then utter useless prayers. Now with the news that's coming in, our protest must not fail. For now we're joined by 30 girls in Armagh Women's Jail. So pay attention, Irish men and Irish women too, and show the Free State rulers that their silence will not do. Though it's 90 miles to Dublin town, it seems so far away. There's more attention to our plight in the USA. Now you've heard the story of this filthy living hell. Remember 90 miles away, I'm still in the hedge block cell.
There we go, folks. There's Christy Moore, 90 miles from Dublin town. That there's Fraz's first music choice. So, folks, welcome along if you're just jumping in. This is, of course, the Rebel podcast with myself, Ro. Normally we're here every Sunday, but we've got a special one-off show this evening, folks, and hopefully maybe do a few more over the coming months. So my guest tonight is legendary West Belfast publican, Fran McCann. Am I right here? So, moving on, Fraz. So, after a stint in the Fianna, you sort of eventually joined D Company.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Hold on a second.
That's right.
So, say, firstly, was there sort of something happened in the area that ultimately made you want to sort of go and take up arms, like sort of defend your area? And obviously then, tell me a wee bit about that sort of initiation meeting in Davis Flatcliff. You were saying that there were loadies were at it, and then there were only a few days went back to it, like so it was?
I'd said earlier on, there were quite a number of events, on the run up to it. 1969, 1970, you had the short strand, you had the July curfew, there had been mass riots and mass resistance on the street, and being a teenager, you took part and most of the street resistance that was going on, and it was after internment that you tried to get into the IRA, but that they says no, come back again, and later on I realised what had happened during that period, and it was about I went into the Fianna about September, I think it was 1971, and then about November when we had joined the IRA, we were sworn in on a flat in Divis flats. And the circumstances were that there was about 15 or more people were in to get sworn in, and that a veteran IRA person came in and told us how difficult it was going to be, the thing that you would be out of the house, you'd be in jail, you would be dead, that people would turn you away from the doors, you would have to sleep rough and all that there, and he gave us an hour's grace or so to make our minds up, and there was only about 6 of us went back into
the room
and got sworn. Although many of them that did leave that night came back and went through the whole thing, but so we were still in the Fianna, and the Fianna and the flats would have been taking part in many different activities at that time, and but when we went over to a house where we knew that there was a meeting on, right. And we went in and the house was packed, and the OC of the area had said to us, look, and we were saying about not getting sent for, and he says, look, to be honest, we have any amount of men here who want to get out on the streets in actions against the British. There you are, and he gives an address, and he says, go up tomorrow night to that address, tell him I sent you up. And we went up and we ended up in A Company in Beachmount.
That's what I was going to say. You sort of joked that it was a transfer originally, so it was like.
I don't know what's they got for it. You know, yeah, it was a transfer.
So obviously, so I sort of said there about just for maybe anyone that's listening, a bit myself as well, not to be sort of ignorant, but I'm sort of like. When you hear you talk about the different companies, like A Company, D Company, is that to do with the areas then? Is that what the...
It was to do with the areas. Thing. There were that many volunteers in it, right. And it's probably that it had to be. I take it had to be structured, and a lot of it was structured in a way that it took in districts. The Lower Falls would have been D Company. There I went at it again. Lower Falls.
You said it.
But
I'm trying not to say it.
The Falls would have been D Company. And C Company would have been Clonard, B Company would have been Ballymurphy, A Company would have been Beachmount, and again that would have been the 2nd Battalion of the area, and then so on.
Right, so I think maybe at this stage, like, you had to sort of maybe tell your parents that you're involved in the movement in sort of some way. So I'm sure like they probably had an inkling that you were sort of involved in doing something, because you're obviously out late at night and whatever, and sort of come back all hours. But what was this case of just sort of like don't bring the Peters to our door, or did they just sort of accept this and our house go events get raided here? So that's soon enough, or
the house was getting raided, and towards the end of 1971 or early January 1972, we were stopped and told by people who would have been members then of what would have been called the official area. And it says, look, we have information that there's a number of what they call Provost houses was going to get raided, right. And I was one of them. Our house was one of them, and I went in and told my mother and told my father. Obviously, my mother would have been very concerned about my safety. Yep. And obviously, she has a large family to raise, but. She never seen it as me bringing trouble at the door, and I think my father was proud of us.
Yeah, okay. So tell us a wee bit of the story about that, 'cause I thought it was quite funny. The first night the house get raided, and you end up in the coal shed.
Well, we were Well, say we'd got word
Yeah.
that the house was going to get raided. I think it was 5 in the Falls was going to get raided, and I'd went into my mother, and my mother just, my God, Fra, don't be starting this. You never stayed at a house in your life. And I says, "Ma, I have to. I will get arrested. I'm going to jail. I'm going to get interned." So I promised her. She says, "Look, I'll close the door." So my dad had been out for a drink, and he came in late. And he came in the door and came in and woke me, and me and him were sitting. He was talking to me in the bedroom, and we had moved from one side of Albert Street to the other. And about 4 in the morning, or 3:30 in the morning, my ma had locked the front door, but locked the glass door, the inner glass door, and I heard the door getting hit. So I jumped up, and at the back of the back window of the room at the back of the house, there was a large roof run across of garages.
Right.
And this January morning, the
Freezing.
thing was freezing.
Frost
It
and
was
all.
full of ice. And I jumped up and put a pair of jeans on, opened the window and got out onto the thing and slid my way
The bare
across.
feet, like?
Yeah, I slid my way across the roof, and behind us was Lady Street. It was Albert Street and Lady Street, and when I got there I could hear the Brits out in the roof, and I could say, "Where did he go to?" And I jumped down into the yard. You knew they were coming across, and I opened the door, and it happened to be the coal hole
Right.
outside. So I lay in there for a while, and there was a woman that heard the disturbance and came out, and she opened the thing. She near died when she seen me lying in the coal house, and she said she recognised me and says, "Come on in, young McCann." And she brought me in, made me a cup of tea, blanket down, a pillow down, and I slept on the settee that night, and that was to be one of many nights staying out of the house.
One of many nights. Right, so obviously, from what I'm hearing then, so your first stint in prison would have been on the Maidstone,
Yeah.
what people sort of call the floating concentration camp,
Yeah.
as it was known. So what sort of circumstances arose for you to end up in there?
Well, the Brits were coming in. There was always the actions between the British Army and the IRA and around Davis and the thing. It was constant. It wasn't long after Bloody Sunday, and we had been up on the balcony on Farset, and the Brits had come in. They were at one end at both ends of the balcony, and they came down, and 3 of us were gripped, and we were brought down into the balcony and held. We were taken from her after a while. There was a mini riot that started, people trying to get us away from the Brits, but we were taken away and held in Hollywood Interrogation Centre for 3 days, and after the 3 days we were interned in the Maidstone.
So how many would have been there then?
But it's hard to say. The Maidstone was where the part of the Maidstone that held the internees was really, really cramped.
Was it
You
all
know,
Republicans?
It
only?
was all Republicans, yeah, and it mostly would have been all ARA, and then you had a few people who would have been classed themselves as officials at the time, but it was mostly ARA, and the escape had taken place just before that I went on, and all
From the ship?
There were seven Republicans escaped,
Right.
got into the water and swum across the water, cut their way through the boards, the bars in the window, got down in the water, ice cold. From what I got told when I went on, they had been rubbing themselves down in butter and things like that.
That's for the cold water?
To take the cold water. They got to swim across thing. Now, and the Maidstone, there was large outposts hanging over the thing, machine gun posts.
Right.
So they went down in the water and swam across, and got up, and they came to a bus terminus.
So where was that docked at? Where,
It was just down the docks, I think, not far from the Odyssey.
right, okay, in there somewhere, right?
So what they done is that they hijacked a bus,
Right.
and they drove it into the market, and they run into a pub and run into a thing, and people took them round to their houses, got them clothes, and cars came in and took them away from different parts of the city. Next thing, they appeared in Dublin at a press conference about the escape. So after I went on, so there'd have been a tightening up with security, and that the portholes closed. Maidstone was rough, it was you'd have got beatings going down to the visits. As said, was very, very cramped. And and you were only on it. I was only on it for 28 days before I was detained and then interned and taken to Long Cash.
Right. Okay. So obviously, when would you have found yourself in the cages then? When shortly after that, or
that there had been that when they took me off of Maidstone, they took me up and I went into cage 7.
so straight there then?
Yeah,
From
in,
right, okay.
into cage 7, and that in itself was an experience, because I got up there about a number of us got up there about 10 o'clock, and they opened the door, and we went into the hut, and the OC of the cage greeted us, brought us in. There might have been 25, 30 people in the hut. They obviously got our bed clothes, and they made us tea and thing, and there was a big table down. I always remember this. There was a big table down the middle of the hut. There was quite a lot of countrymen on it,
Right.
and they used to get the country bread, the homemade country bread sent in, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and sat and got a feed of that there. But that was the first experience, and then the next day, obviously. The OC would come round, and you would have a meeting with them, and he'd just explain the disciplines that there would be in the compound or cage itself.
Right. So, well, I'll say when you first arrived in the cages, how did you sort of find the living conditions, right? Because as it was 2 years ago now, I'd done the podcast on the burn of the cages with my dad, Danny Vanny, and your cousin Jim McCann, and Paddy Malloy, and obviously it was sort of varied the way Danny and think. Sort of seen it the way he was saying it was like a bit of like a holiday camp, but obviously my dad and Jim were saying like it's more like a concentration camp. This place,
It was a concentration camp. If you see the layout of the compounds and the Nissen huts and the so many people to each thing, they'd have been overcrowded, and there was a difference. Your father and Jim and Danny were at what was called the top end of the camp. That was for the sentenced Republican prisoners. We were at the bottom end. We were internees, and we had much more freedoms in terms of what we could get in.
Right. Okay.
In terms of parcels and things like that there. But nevertheless, you were still, your liberty was taken from you. You were still there. But what you try to do is to make your best of it. Time can be difficult for anyone, but what you try to do is to make the best of it.
Right, so we're going to move on to Fra's next song here now, getting ready through these. So what's the next song you've picked there, Fra, and what's the reason for this one?
Well, it's Francie Brawley. Francie's a good friend and comrade. He was in an MLA, he was interned with us back in the day, and he wrote this song about his brother, Ewan, who was on the blanket. And I think I have to say, all of us that went through it, it gets quite emotional, when you think. And some people call it like the anthem of the people who were on the blanket protest. So I think it's a great song, and it just puts together the history of this country. But at the end, talks about the protests in prison. It's good.
Right, here's the next song, folks. It's Fra's next choice, and it's Francie Brawley with H Block Song.
I am a proud young Irishman. In Ulster's hills my life began. A happy boy through green fields ran. I kept God's and man's laws. But when my age was barely 10, my country's wrongs were told again by tens of thousands marching men, and my heart stirred to the cause. So I'll wear no convict's uniform, nor meekly serve my time, that Britain might brand Ireland's fight 800 years of crime. I learned of centuries of strife, of cruel laws, injustice rife. I saw now in my own young life
the fruits of foreign sway. Protesters threatened, tortured, maimed, divisions nurtured, passions flamed, outrage provoked, rights cause defamed. This is the conqueror's way. So I'll wear no convict's uniform, nor meekly serve my time, that Britain might brand Ireland's fight 800 years of crime. Descended from proud Connacht clan, Concannon served cruel Britain's plan. Man's inhumanity to man had spawned a trusty slave. No strangers are these bolts and locks, no new design, these dark age blocks. Black Cromwell lives while Mason stalks, the bully taunts the brave. But I'll wear no convict's uniform, nor meekly serve my time, that Britain might brand Ireland's fight 800 years of crime. Does Britain need 1,000 years of protest, riot, death and tears? Or will this past decade of fears of 80 decades spell an end to Ireland's agony, new hope for human dignity? And will the last obscenity be this grim H-block cell? I'll wear no convict's uniform, nor meekly serve my time, that Britain might brand Ireland's fight 800 years of crime.
So welcome back, folks. That there was Fra's second song choice. That was Francie Bally with the brilliant H-Block song. It's very fitting as well, seeing Monday there started the 40th anniversary of Bobby going on hunger strike. Right, so we'll jump back in here with the folks. Just if you're watching here on Facebook, please, if you can share the stream, if you can, even on YouTube as well. I mean, we can see many. There is people commenting, so but we're just going to go on with the interview. So obviously, Fra, you're in the cages, right? And you decided you're going to plan an escape from the camp. Now, obviously, you told me this one was better escape. You thought the story of it anyway was better than Bick and Bobby's one, like. So it was.
So that is one of the slags that thing, and I listened to the lads doing it, and God have mercy and Bobby, you know, that it was outstanding, and some of the crack that Bobby gave it was unbelievable. But that was the first time I was interned. The second, I was out for 6 months.
Right, okay.
And then was re-interned again.
So see, we'll probably do this story, but before, see, when you were out then, is that when you got to go meet Tom Barry? Or before?
Yeah, that was when I got to.
Tell us a bit about their story then.
Well, what they had at the time, the war was fairly intense and on the streets, and that people were asked that they want to go away on a rest period. So there was quite a number of people that probably happened through different parts of Ireland, but I know that it happened for many in Cork, and there was about 10 of us went down, and that we stayed in Cork. We stayed with different families. I happened to be staying with a guy who passed away years ago, called O'Sullivan, who was the OC of Cork at the time. And during the week, he had says to me, look, we've set something up, and I was with a good friend called Buster Trainer. Buster had great difficulties walking. And because he'd been hitting the back after a nail bomb attack,
Right, okay.
and it obviously had a big impact on his life. So he said to me, "Frank, keep yourself ready. I want you to go around and with me. I want you to meet somebody, or yourself and all the rest of the lads." So I goes around the car and we stopped outside a building, and I think it was an upstairs flat or something, or somewhere in Cork City. And I was standing there, and there was an elderly man came out, and he had a long grey Dexter and he had a grey hat on, and he came over, and the man shook hands with the guy I was with, and the guy said to Tom Barry, "Commandant Barry, I would like you to meet volunteer from McCann from Belfast." And yeah, just caught on. I'd read the book, and it's something that I have held very, very special.
What was that like? But I mean,
it was powerful. But he came back with us, went round the lounge and a bar, and he were just telling us. He was telling us the stories about his battles with the Brits, and we were telling him stories and things like that. And it went on for a couple of hours, and it was just amazing. And it's something that you always treasure and hold dear. You know, a man of such high esteem throughout Ireland, that we got the opportunity all the way from Belfast to go and meet him.
I know, and you're like sort of very, very well known for taking your selfies when you're away on holiday. Like, so I mean, sure, there was one selfie you would love to get. Like,
unfortunately, there wasn't a photo taken. I don't know why. And most of us was there. I wouldn't have been able to afford a camera. But we should have got someone somewhere and went down and just kept a record of everything. But when you were young then, you know, you had no inkling of keeping a record of what you were doing.
So obviously, go back to where we're talking about the escape. So in your second stint in the cages in. So were you actually sentenced this time? Or were you back and turned again?
I was back and turned again, and I had gotten turned again, and I'd got out in May 72, and I was back in again in November 1972. And about March, the Cage 5 had been closed for a considerable period of time. Then when we were moving in, we'd put our names down to get thing, and a lot of the falls people had moved over. A lot of people from Andersonstown, like Shawnee Doris, Frad Doris, a number of other people. We had went over and went down to Cage 5, and it was a short time later, maybe then towards the end of 73 or mid 73, we were in a half hut and then in Cage 5, and we the OC came and says we'll start to dig a tunnel. You know, there was supposed to be a rumour about that there was a storm rolling down the middle of the football pitch, so we started digging that, and after a while, you know, it was heavy because we were just trying to get used to it. And when you're down underground, unless you have some way of getting air down, you know, you take powerful headaches.
See, when obviously Beck and them spoke with the escape they had, obviously it said like, only certain people knew about it because they couldn't for it to work. They could only tell. Was it the same with yourselves? Was it only certain people who were going, or was it going to be a mass breakout?
And I see the cage we were in had done 5 tunnels over a period of time, and that obviously give you an edge. And all the ones were caught. I think the 1.5 hut, we had it going, and the screws used to come in early in the morning, say 7, half 7, and do a head count. Well, we'd have dug all night and then polished the floors.
Is that the only time they were in, was it?
Well, they came in and done 2 screws used to walk around the cage at times, and that was mostly to keep an eye on the wire. As a matter of fact, one of the times that there was a tunnel getting dug out of one of the huts in Cage 5 after the half hut one, that one Sunday morning it had been lashing out of the heavens, and we heard a scream. And went down. The tunnel had collapsed. And there was 2 screws fell down. Fell out the thing. But the one that you're talking about, I think after the burning of the camp, within days, and you mentioned your father, you mentioned Danny and Jim and people like that. There, you know, we were living in fairly horrific conditions, and the IRA, both top and bottom, that the IRA had I say to people, try to come up with ways to escape. And
Right.
the only way that you could really do it was tunnels, and we had the experience. And so, where the hut's being burned, there was aspects of the hut were still standing. And what we done is pulled corrugated iron, put it round the thing, and we started digging. There was big pieces of metal that had been left over from a translines, and it was a man then, such a strong man called Ned McGuire. Ned's dead now, and Ned swung at it, and he was hitting the concrete on
Try and break it up.
and
First,
broke it up.
right.
And what you'd done was that you'd broke that up, you'd got down to the hardcore, you dug at it, you tried to level it off, you made it in such a way that you were able to get into it. Then you started to go a wee bit deeper, and I remember at times, I was about 7 stone 7, and you got down a bit, and we were over, and comrades that had held you by the feet, and you'd have been hanging down, and you'd have been trying to enlarge
Right.
the place where you were getting in, the shaft.
So see the actual the material. So what did you do with? I mean, what?
Well, there's tons of stuff comes out of it,
Right.
but this was unusual circumstances. We had barred the screws by and large from the compounds.
Right.
They got in the morning to do a head count, and at night they got in occasionally to walk round or to come in and check the wire. That was their only concern,
Yeah.
checking the wire. Little did they know that we were going on
So
the wire.
what was the wire?
The wire that it was the fence that went round the compound.
Oh, right, okay,
Yeah.
right.
And there was
okay.
a number of them that before you.
Oh, so you were going
you-
straight under it, then they were over. Right.
we were going on to it. So when we got down, we had squared off, and I think it's mostly sand because it's built in an old Air Force base. Was mostly sand. We had squared it off, and then started digging towards the M1.
Right.
In that direction.
I was watching. It was 2 weeks ago. The Shawshank Redemption. And just imagine when your man Andy Dufresne that broke out, but he sort of put the stuff down his trouser legs and rolled it up, and every morning he went out and sort of dumped a bit on the football pitch or something, whatever it was like. I mean, did you just do it in the cage itself? I mean, would you just bring it back each time he's kept digging, or?
But no, believe me, what comes out of a tunnel is tons and tons of equipment.
Yeah.
What we had is that, first of all, in that tunnel, there used to be a big water tower, but it had been burned, and there was a big a metal tank.
I guess this is
over
the
and
thing my
filled
dad
it-
made the jacuzzi out of. So it is.
filled it full of water.
Yeah.
And on the where we had been building the tunnel, we had put all corrugated iron around it that told us the screws thought we were sleeping in it.
Right,
So
okay.
the corrugated iron hid the stuff that we were taking out of it.
Right.
And around the thing. So we were digging from, I think it was the 15th or 16th or 17th of October, right through till the 4th and 5th of November. And that was sometimes 24 hours a day. And some of the stories, the likes of Paddy Joe Rice, a friend of mine who, from the Falls, he was OC of the cage. And we knew that we were having problems. You have to shore the tunnel up. So you were using the old corrugated iron that had been burnt. You were using pieces of wood and whatever you got
Yep.
to use as the things that held that up. And but you were having problems seeing. The thing was pitch
Right.
black. There was only a certain amount of light that you got down it. And Paddy Joe went over to the PO. He knew the PO, and he says, "Look, I'll tell you what it is." He says, my men around here, he says, some of them had serious accidents at night. They fell over things.
Oh, they can't see it,
and
right,
they
okay,
can't
right.
see. And he says, what is it you want, Paddy Joe? He says, I would like 200 foot of wire, and I would like stuff that so that we can connect into
The mains.
I said, well, since that's a good idea. So we got it over, and it went. There was a couple of electricians in the
Right.
hut, and they put it down the tunnel, so it kept the tunnel lit.
So basically, they give you bulbs and all that.
We got bulbs and all the
Right.
thing was that to keep the tunnel lit. So we used that thing. But the thing in a tunnel, and as I say, the likes of Shawshank Redemption, but one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it bears no resemblance to what a tunnel is like, you know.
Yeah, an actual
You know,
tunnel.
sometimes
yeah.
I seen you watch about the Great Escape and things like that there, you know. If you were to do all that and digging a tunnel, it would take you years and years and years, and we were operating in with a fairly tight timeline. You know, it's only a matter of time before the thing. One of the big problems that you have is water. When it rains, the tunnel collapses, and there was parts of the tunnel that we were digging at maybe 70, 80 foot down. That when you're on your direction out, you were about 6 or 7 foot down, and most of us spent our lives in the tunnel just digging and digging and digging.
So this happened like a day and night, or I mean,
yeah,
was
we kept the operation
just
going.
shifts have like shifted?
Day and night, and the thing, and it obviously gets a bit scary because I remember one part of it. You know, there was 2 huge big fences.
Right.
It had a foundation to hold the fences up, and I remember hitting that, and you were digging down to try to get under it, and you're landing. But at that stage, the thing was pitch black because it was a fresh part of the tunnel you were digging, and I remember pushing the dirt back. You had a leg of a large spoon that they would have served food on, and I remember getting in, and then I realised it was in a bubble
Right.
onto this big rock down onto the ground, and somebody had went up. And then what they ended up doing is just digging it and getting to come back. It wasn't that long, you know, but I have to say it was a bit frightening at the time.
Joe McCann just said there, he says that screw was definitely a bright spark. So, he was like, so when did you actually realise that you were digging back on yourselves? Because didn't you, the first time you were digging back in the camp or something?
What we didn't do was just keep an eye on the thing. And there was somebody had mentioned it, and a friend, Frankie Rice, had got a wee piece of wood, and whatever he'd done with it, it was just to try and looked at the tunnel, and we realised that we were going on a curve. So what we done was started to use the dirt that we had filling that in.
Right, okay, so obviously tell us about when you eventually did get out, and obviously it was short lived. I mean, so you did get out, but I mean, and there was a guy lost his life as well, wasn't there?
Cooney, an area volunteer from Tyrone, Cooney.
So I mean, how many of you got out of it? And I mean,
well, there was 33 in total. The intention would have been, if it if you had been able to do it, was clear our cage, and then other compounds, if it had been able to get across, do that also. So it would have been a huge escape, and it was just by a fluke that the thing was caught. The night that we were going out, when we eventually we'd come up a couple of times to look, and just to make sure that we're that we were in not only in the right direction, but we're close. But when we dug up that day, a couple of friends, we were on the inside of the wire rather than the outside, and a friend had said, and we were going to take a chance and cut the wire with wire cutters, and I went down.
did you have them?
You had them. Every compound has wire cutters. You got them smuggled in.
Right. Okay.
Through different things. That's just in case you were going. You need to cut the wire thing. So we didn't. A friend of mine was just pulling the pole into the dirt, and it collapsed. So it collapsed outside. So they didn't have to cut the wire. We went up. So there was the people, they were putting squads. There was 3 people sent out first, and they were to look at, but you didn't know what you were going out into, and they were to deal with any barbed wire that lay about that would stop you getting across thing, but you didn't know what the Brits were doing. Just across when we were going, I was in the second squad, and when I got to cross the road, you realised there was a big ditch. It was an anti-tunnel ditch when I got down.
Oh, move your mic here. Somebody's just saying here on YouTube, can you move your mic because I can't see you? The mic's cover up your face, so it is. Oh my God. Oh.
Okay.
Only a second.
Is that okay?
Yep, I got to better now. Yep, that's you. Go ahead.
So when we got up, I have to tell you, it was the greatest experience of your life. You know, when you come up at top of a tunnel, you had spent over 2 weeks underground digging along with other comrades, and you come up out of the tunnel. There was part of the tunnel that there was constant flooding, so you had to pull yourself through, head down through water for part of it before you come up into it. And when we got up, we got across the road. We ended up in a ditch, what was not a tunnel device, ditch, and we all hugged each other. The first squad was still sitting there, and we were out, we were free, and you look back and everything was so bright. There was that many lights on. You could look up and you could see British soldiers in the watchtowers.
Yeah.
They were watching into the camp, and we were on the outside of the camp. So we started crawling across the grass right across, and we're crawling for a few minutes. It's hard to put time on it. And we came to a wee road, and there was a wee farmer's fence. That's where that's when the prison lawn stopped, and there was a farmer's field. And somebody was trying to cut the wire, and we were all lying on top of each other. And the next thing, there was two shots rang it, and Cooney was just lying to the right of me, and he was shot dead.
So was he trying to crawl out on the shot him?
We were all trying to get
Right.
into the farmer's field.
So he shot in the back end, was he, or what?
Shot in the back.
Right, and what happened then? Did all hell break loose then? I mean,
Well, that's it. There was a couple that pushed on through. There was about 10 of us at the start. There was a couple pushed on through, but this time the Brits had run across the field. You could hear them at the back because people were still coming up out of the tunnel, and they were arresting them and putting them against the wire. So they came and they pulled us out of the road, said this right lie on the ground, and we got up and we were over around Cooney, and the adjutant of our cage was there, and he went over, and he says, he needs help, and the Brits were shouting, we said he needs a doctor, and they were shouting, it's not a doctor he needs, it's a priest. And but they made us, they were beating us, and they made us star in the middle of the road, and that's when the beating started. There
was dogs as well, no, the burning?
Well, they had a dog, nicely. It was a big, hairy greyhound. It's Alsatian. And I remember a British Army officer coming along, and he said, I remember saying to him, how many dogs have you got? He says, 1. He says, many people? He says, 7. He says, get a dog for each of them.
Seriously?
Jesus. I had over something like 27 dog bites.
Could you feel it? Was it everywhere? I mean, was it?
That was what they had is that they had them in short and long leashes,
Right.
and they let them go.
Right.
And they would have wanted, they grabbed you by the arm, they'd have pulled you away. At some stage during the beatings there was a van pulled up on the wee road, and they took us one at a time round the side of the van, and they started questioning you, what case did you come out of, who what name do you think, and you didn't answer them, and your man touched from your cracker, it was just a punch in the nose, and you were bleeding, and they were screaming at you, tell us what compound you came out of, and then they put you back, put you down again, just started the beatings again.
So, see, I'm not. Was your sort of, like I say, internship increased, or we didn't really have a set intern? Was it like what happened when you got back in? Just sort of say, like, to say you're going to get more time in now or something? Or
well, we did. We got charged with after the brought us to cells that night and put us in the hospital because someone had with serious injuries, and the hospital was 2 Nissen huts, and after that they put us back in our compound and the cage 5, and after a while, that they were taken out, and we were charged with attempted escape.
Right. So obviously, when were you eventually sort of charged and sentenced and put in jail, and what age would you have been?
Well, I was, when the first time I went, I was 18. I went back in again when I was 19. This would have been 23.
Right. Okay.
And what they had done is that we had been charged, obviously, but we'd got solicitors, and this would have been about November 1975, and we were charged. We ended up with your Dan always the compounds. We had been transferred from internment into.
Right. Were you in the Crumb first, weren't you? Before you were up to the Blacks, or what?
No, the Blacks came later. So
right. Okay.
And that we were put in the thing. So we most of us got out the internment at the end of, I think, at the end of November, and that most of us got out the 22nd or 23rd of December 1975.
Right, okay. So tell us a wee bit now about obviously the blanket protest. When and sort of where did you first come into this? I mean,
Well, they I'd been out for about 11 months,
right,
and I ended up back in again. I was on remand for 7 months. I got 3 years for possession and IRA membership. I was moved from the Crum, the blanket protest that started up in the H blocks. That I got that, and that obviously was going on the protest. But because I had got it under 3 years and I was over 21, I was supposed to do my time in Belfast prison, so that I got put behind what they called behind the wire. It was a punishment block in B wing. It was like a partition and with chicken wire had run down one side of the wing. I remember being down the base of the prison, and the screw says, "Get your clothes off, need a uniform." I says, "I've already told you I'm not wearing any uniform."
Yep.
And so the next day, they were taking me from B wing from the base up in the B wing, and anywhere you went, you had that you went naked. And probably the most humiliating part of the whole thing was that when I was taken up, it must have been about 4 o'clock or so in the next afternoon, and it was during the changeover for screws. So the circle was full of screws, and you were walking through them completely naked. And
how many of you? Was it all you? Like,
it was only me.
Just can you run a man first? Was it?
I was
right,
on
okay,
first.
right,
See, I'd got out of internment.
Right, okay,
and
right.
then back in again, and I was on remand, got sentenced, and so I went into B wing, and that was a punishment block, and most of your time in B wing you spent in solitary confinement.
Right.
I was in solitary confinement for about 15-16 months.
So you had said that people were going for visits and they seen you, like walking about, like when you were naked or something?
There was a couple of guys from the Falls, and the day I was getting moved from the base up to B wing to join the Our Comrades, there was only 3 other ones at the time. 3 Belfast men. Jimmy Duffy from Ballymurphy, he's now passed away. Joe McGuire from the Clonard area, and Jerry Murray from Beachmount. And I was going up to join them, and the screws were taking me from the base up, and I was walking up the stairs, and they were walking down to go on a visit, and they seen a naked Fran McCann walking up the stairs to go through the thing.
Jesus.
And saying it was when you got up there, and going to cross the circle, it was humiliating.
Sure, it was like that. So we're sort of talking now about what was called the No Wish protest.
Yeah.
So I mean, tell me, like, I'm just trying to imagine. I've done a podcast on this, on the blanket protest, and I was listening to all the stories of John and even Breed as well in Armagh, and harrowing, like listening to. I mean, see when you first started it, did it take a lot of time to get used to? I mean, obviously the smell, and I mean, was it? I mean.
Well, it's after a while you don't notice it,
right?
And secondly, that you took visits, because visits was your lifeline to the outside, and it was bad. The beatings were bad. The searches were degrading, and it was all about humiliation, about trying to beat and break up the prisoners. So the only way that you could build up any type of campaign or build up the thing was to ensure that you have a direct line of communication with the outside, and that was done through the visits. And there was some ingenious ways that happened. And I remember talking to my mother and my sister and all after I got out, and I was saying to them, like, when they come up, did you notice anything? And they said the smell was terrible.
Yeah, but you didn't notice it because
I didn't notice it. You were used to it. When you started, the likes of at the start when you put rotten food in the corner, when you had food that was over, you threw it in. And during the summer months, you know, that the maggots that had got into it, and some nights you'd have been lying there and you'd have felt the maggots on your legs and things like that. And the smell from the food was was worse, probably the worst thing. But then that when you'd just added to the protest, and that was that you put your crap in the walls.
So, and did they come in like a lot of time and try and power hose it down, or what? Would they take you out of it and then they come in and wash it down, or what happened?
They were actually what was called wing moves. They'd have come in, and obviously we wouldn't have a thing. They'd have dragged you out of the cell. They'd have run you down the thing. And what they'd have done is that initially what they'd done, certainly in our block, which was H3, they would have had a table there in front of you. You were completely naked. There were screws at either side of the table that told you to bend, and you refused to bend.
So the beatings started, right?
They beat you and pulled your head down, lifted your legs up, pulled your legs apart, and whoever went in between your legs and pulled your backside apart, and threw you down. They got you up.
There's no about front of the make this.
That have beat you on the way around the thing, but it was really, really humiliating. And they changed that at some stage to a mirror search, where they try to get you to straddle over a mirror and bend so that they could look up your backside, and you refused to do it. Then you were badly beaten there also, to kick your legs, punched you and things like that, and afterwards beat you round the wing again. And the visits were fairly particularly difficult also, with beatings and things like that,
So how long were you on the protest before you were released then?
Well, I was on the protest for about 29 months.
Right.
Would have been, about 28 months. I spent the first 15 months of my protest in the Blanket and Crumlin Road prison. There was 4 of us. And that there, and then I went up to H Block. So it was altogether it was about 28 months, 28 months.
Right. There's always like a picture I always whenever I think of you for that, it's the one down in Casement where you have when you're the one that had all the blanket men and women, and you're busy standing raising your fist. Yeah. I think it was the 25th anniversary that day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was playing Maxi Earner that day. We marched down, and amazing day, like needing to see Casement like that there, like it was just so obviously that's when you get out then. So there's obviously a picture outside where you're embracing your mother, and is that when Kieran Nugent came up with some of the van and stuff and picked you up, was it?
Well, my mother got father got a minibus, one of the local GA clubs, and they came up to collect me. And when I got out, I was the first that got out that hadn't been forced washed or shaved.
Right, okay.
What they used to do is come and take you out of the cell the day before it.
Right.
Force wash you, force shave you.
Cut all out, right.
And there had been some bad beatings during that there. And so the people that got out before me, there was press conference held. People seen the injuries that people got on the way out. So I was lucky enough that when I got out, that I was the first at the end. So I went out and I'd got into the minibus. After there was people in the car park coming over and hugging you, and it gets into the minibus. And my family's there, and one of them, I looked at, there was 2 guys in the minibus. One of them was Kieran Nugent. He leant over and he hugged me, and he says, "We'll have a yarn later." And the guy with him, he says, "This is such and such," and I shook hands with him, and he looked at me and he bent over. I hadn't even left the car park, and he says to me, "Are you reporting back?" I looked at him and he what? He says, "Are you reporting back?" I says, "Aye." And he says, "Well, don't touch her beard, don't touch her hair." He says, "You're the first one that we've got out that looks like a blanket man, as supposed to look like."
So what busy did they have planned for you then? Like,
well, it's like any campaign you organise. A big part of it is just organising meetings, publicity, doing things. So myself and Kieran and a number of other ex-prisoners started doing the rounds of Ireland. We went into different towns and the different I was only out 2 days, and I was told I was going down into a place I think it was for Manny Sinn Féin dinner. They held it, I think, in the Four Seasons Hotel in Monaghan, and when I went in, the place was packed. there was hundreds and hundreds of people, and you're only out of the thing. And when I went in, everybody was all around you. They were shaking hands, and you're fairly fragile, but you had all these big countrymen that shaking their hands. That don't mean anything, but they were breaking your hands, and you
like slaps on, and you're going.
you felt just. And somebody had wrote a wee piece out to me to read, and I couldn't even do it. My nerves were that bad. I couldn't even do it. I got up, and but people were just so receptive to the thing, and the fact that you got up with a large beard and long hair, and I was 8'3" then when I got out. So you spent. You obviously you said yourself you devoted the rest of your life then to travelling and speaking at meetings to help out set up H-Block committees and throughout Ireland.
So obviously you went to America and stuff as well, didn't you? Right?
Yeah. Well, I went in. That was 1980, and the run up to the first hunger strike. I went to myself and a friend, a comrade from Derry, Liam Carn, and we flew into Canada, and both of us were arrested in Canada and held for 2 days in Canada, and an immigration holding centre. We went in and front of that door, and they give us. We said we were going to visit the country, and they give us a 4-week visa.
Right? Okay.
And we went out, and I had just a small piece of paper that just with a phone number and a name on it, and I had that well put away, let's say. So I went into the toilet and retrieved that, and then phoned, and the guy says, "Look, we were worried about you. We thought you had been sent back." So we told us where to go, and got a bus and then a taxi, and that night we went into America.
Right.
And we spent the rest of the time travelling around the states. When I got into New York, Kieran was there, and that's another story, because Kieran had been there before, and he got caught and got deported, but there were people in America who wanted the first blanket and went back over again, and Kieran came back over. And I was taking it. Obviously, you take your chances. But Kieran's second time, there, and Kieran was getting married, and he said this way: if I have to go to Cork, he says I'm going down to do a bit of travelling around there to help set up thing. And it was the date to the wedding was getting forever closer. And Kieran went to America. And he kept saying, "Look, I have to get home. I'm getting married in 10 days' time, and then a week's time, and then 5 days' time." And at the end up, he got arrested outside a place in a big hotel in New York, where there was a big meeting on, and some Brits were at it, and he got deported, and just back in time
just for the wedding.
For the wedding. And his wife said, "Where were you?" He says, "Well, I was in Cork and Kerry." And she says,
"Via America."
What about that piece of paper, that newspaper? There was a report of him speaking and being arrested in the USA. So we've done a lot of travelling in America, and I have to say, but you go to a place like the USA, and it's huge. It's and the buildings were frightening, but the people were unbelievable. The people there, Irish Americans, who were unbelievable, who give you everything you wanted, who looked after you, who worked 2 jobs, most of them, who spent their lives trying to build up a structure in America that would deal with the first hunger strike, and it did. When I got arrested on it, but before that, you were hit. So myself and a friend, a comrade called Desi McCann, got arrested one afternoon in New York. There was a big protest going on against the I think Prince Philip was attending something, and we were going to protest. And I had just arrived back from I think it was Pittsburgh or Boston the night before, and I was delegated to speak the next day at the thing. And Desi, who was looking after our wee group, had said, "Fry, you're not speaking tomorrow." And he said to Liam, "You'll have to do it," because he says the house that we were staying in had been that it was being cased by the feds.
Right. Okay.
And they were caught. And when the people came out to collect me that night at the airport, they described the two people that was in the back of a van watching their house. And Desi says, "You're not speaking, Liam. You do the talking today." So we went down, and myself and Desi were sitting across from the Rockefeller Centre. I think it was the Rockefeller Centre. And I seen this guy walking across the road, and it was a really hot day. And I said to Desi, I think I know your man from somewhere. And he got up, and I just seen him putting his two of them putting his hand on his back, and he just bumped dropped. Here's me immigration, and I got up and run. I jumped on the tables and jumped over and started running down Fifth Avenue. And the guy pulled the gun out and was shouting, "Stop!
Immigration
stop."
guns.
Right,
okay.
Stop. And I got to a corner, and there was one of them had cut me off, run across the road, and stuck a gun into my head, and said to yourself, "Star on the ground." And we got into an argument over about me refusing to lay on the ground. So I was just caught. But probably Desi ended up doing 17 months in remand because he had been shot up here in Lanark.
In America?
In America, so it was in the States. We were in the Manhattan Correctional Centre, two legal immigrants, and there was mafia dons, Russian spies and things in it. But
how did you find the way the American people took to us?
It was fantastic. See, it's a huge country, and it takes a while. The media is huge, and you need to get a breakthrough. And we were travelling, and you were getting into the press, okay, but there was nothing there that was good enough to bring it to the next level. And there was one day I was speaking in the Boston State House.
Right.
There was a woman there, great woman, a great friend of Ireland, Mary Howe, and it ended up she was chairing a press conference. She was the head of the legislator in Boston, and we were speaking. And then halfway through it, there was a couple of British press there, and they were attacking me, asking the questions about being in the IRA, about being in the country illegally. And somebody went to Mary and whispered to Mary, it was one of the staff, and says that the immigration have come into the building, and that they were looking at me. And she told them to delay them, and to answer another couple of questions, and they escaped out through the boiler room from the Boston State House. And that night I was scheduled to speak on a radio program, and I went into the radio program to do to talk about the hate blacks also, and that's all. There was just nitty gritty work about doing interviews, meeting people, and I was just getting put on to it was just a start, and the security at the door came up and says there's immigration agents at the door, and they're asking, is he in here? They want to come in, and the woman says, would you give me 5 minutes? And I says, yeah, and I'd done the interview for 5 minutes, and they kept the door locked down the stairs and escaped out of that. Was all in one day. So I think things like that you picked up in the press, and then you had the wee network building up. You had other released prisoners in different parts of the states just doing it. So it was obviously worthwhile because you were getting your message across, and we worked with NORAID. We had been setting up what they called Irish prisoner war committees, and that was it. But I had met so many good people out there, and I had done some great work.
I think even going back to, it was 1989. We actually went over where we were now for the Cleveland. Actually, we brought the dog over with us in the second year we went. But there was a guy called Pat O'Malley. He was, I think I know Pat O'Malley. Michael Ferguson originally brought him over.
That's right, I know Pat O'Malley.
And obviously we were having some function in the Trinity Lodge Rose, and Mackie started talking to this guy Pat, and he's like, I might bring us over or whatever. And we thought nothing of it. And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. Says, I want to bring you to Cleveland. Yeah. And we were a whole big fundraising drive, and see what them people done for us.
They're fantastic.
I mean, you were lifted and led the whole time you were with me. You couldn't, amazing.
Well, the strange thing about our arrest in America, we were held in a Flushing detention centre for immigrants, illegal immigrants at the start, and me and Desi were taken out because we were classed as high profile. The normal bail at that time for an illegal immigrant was $900, and they set our bail at $50,000 each. So I was brought in front of a court, and I went in, and the judge knew off my solicitor, a guy called Frank Durkin. His uncle was Paul, the great Paul O'Dwyer, from had run for mayor of New York, or was mayor of New York at one stage. And he says, "What about your uncle Paul? I've followed your career. What's this case about?" Legal immunity. He was deported. And it was that quick.
Yeah.
But the judge bent over and he says, "Have you ever thought of a plan for political asylum?" And I looked at my solicitor, and Frank Durkin says, "Yes, Your Honour, we'll have the papers." He says, "Released on $30,000 bail." So in all the time that I was there, and you were on the run from the thing, I was released and could travel freely throughout America.
Brilliant. So listen, we're going to move on now to the third song choice, right? So it's another Christy Moore song, I think. So what's the next one you've picked then?
Viva la Quinta Brigada, and obviously it's about the international brigades that went to the thing, and about the Irish International Brigade that went out to, and what was the height of the socialism and the defending the democratic government that had been elected in Spain from the fascists. And my wee story about that is that I for a few years at the start, if you remember, the Nor'eaters used to come, members of Nor'eaters used to come over, and I was in charge of taking them around the north. For a week, we went and they stayed in different places, and I met an elderly gentleman who was originally from Boston, had moved to Montreal, and he had seen it advertised about the trip and joined it. You called him, I just can't recollect his, Robert Emmett Hoy was his name. I was just telling me his life thing, and he had joined his father. The first touch with Irish republicanism for him was when he was a child. His father, who was a member of the ARA, brought him to the funeral of O'Donovan Rossa, where Padraig Pearse done that famous speech.
Yeah, the fools,
the fools, the fools. So he heard that. After the Civil War, when many Republicans were leaving the country after the loss in the Civil War, and they went to America, he was one of them. So when he was only a child, so he grew up and he was a carpenter, and that he was, he was a member of the Union, and he joined the International Brigade and went to Spain. He was telling me this in the bus one night, and he told me that he ended up in Spain, and when he came back, he said he said it was difficult because you couldn't get. He found it difficult getting jobs because he was being classed as a communist and whatever. So he went up to Canada, and he lived in Montreal, and he became a fairly prosperous businessman in Montreal. So with that history, we were in a bar in Derry for a Republican function, and I went up and explained some of it to the guy who was singing in the group. And I says, "Do you know Viva la Quinta Brigada?" And I explained the thing. And obviously, he'd never heard of a song called Viva la Quinta Brigada. And I says, "Would you give this guy, Robert Emmett Hoy, a mention?" And the man got up and says, "Is Robert Emmett Hoy there?" And he says, "Would you get on your feet?" And he says, "We want to sing a song here for you. It's about the international brigades." One of them certainly that talks about the Irish people that die on the thing.
Yep.
But you're welcome here tonight, and they played Viva la Quinta Brigada, and he broke down during the thing, and so it was quite emotional for him, and that's the reason I picked it. Although I love the song anyway.
Right, so we're going to go. I actually want to do this one here. This is the one I normally play in the podcast. It's the Christy Moore's Live the Barlands version.
Brilliant.
And see the crowd in this here. When you hear them all booing and stuff, and it's really like so. It's just for our next song. This is Christy Moore. Actually, I think this was actually recorded live for like a BBC documentary. This concert, so it wasn't it? It's brilliant.
I've been at a couple of concerts in the Barlands.
Yeah. So this is Christy Moore, folks, with a Viva la Quinta Brigada.
And 10 years before I saw the light of morning,
A comradeship of heroes was laid from every corner of the world crusade. The 15th International Brigade, they came to stand beside the Spanish people to try and stem the rising fascist tide. Franco's allies were the powerful and wealthy. Frank Ryan's men came from the other side. Even the olives were bleeding as the battle for Madrid had thundered on, to root and love against the force of evil, brotherhood against the fascist blood. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no pass around the flesh that made him fun. Adelante is the crier on the hillside. Let us remember them tonight. Bob Hillard was the Church of Ireland pastor. From Killarney across the Pyrenees he came. From there he came a brave young Christian brother. Side by side they fought and died in Spain. And Tommy Woods at 17 died in Cordova. With the Vienna he learned to hold the gun. From Dublin to the Via del Rio, where they fought and died beneath the Spanish sun. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no pass around the pledge that made him fight. Adelante is the crier of the hillside. Let us remember them tonight. And the Irishman heard the call of Franco, joined Hitler and Mussolini too. A propaganda from the pulpit and newspaper had done nothing to gather up its crew. And the word came from the church support the Nazis. Then at last they failed again. The bishops blessed the blue shirts down in Galway as they sailed beneath the swastika to Spain. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no pass around the pledge that made him fight. Adelante is the crier of the hillside. Let us remember them tonight. And this song is a tribute to Frank Ryan, Kit Conway and Vinnie Cody too, Peter Daly, Charlie Reagan and Hugh Bonner. So many died and but never few. Danny Boyle, Leza Brown and Charlie Dunphy, Liam Tomlinson and Jim Strady from Short Strand, Jack Nulty, Tommy Patton and Frank Conroy, Jim Foley, Tony Fox and Dick O'Neill. Viva la Quinta Brigada, no pass around the pledge that made him fight. Adelante is the crier of the hills.
Yeah, it's Christy Moore, folks. Viva la Quinta Brigada. If you there's the live Barlands version, fantastic. So it is. Right, so before we go on to the next, there's a few people that asked on questions. Just there's one here sort of stood out on YouTube, so we'll just ask Frad. Let's see, 2 seconds. It came from Des Damond, and he says, "What was for Frad? What was the coldest place and temperature, Frad, that you experienced, and how did you survive through it?"
Well, there's probably two elements to that question. One was the winter of '78 in the H-blocks, where there was no windows in. That we had a blanket each. And I think it might have been recorded one of the coldest night on record. It might have been 20 below in it. So you were constantly cold, and you survived it because you were deeply committed. The consequences of not surviving it was that the Brits would have won, and that we were there as part of a protest. They were trying to break us, and we were going to break them. The other element of it was in the winter of '77. I was in the Crum, and we were on the blanket, 4 of us. Matter of fact, Bobby Sands done a wee article after he spent 14 days, and I'm having Joe McDonald, Big Shimmy Finucane from up here, Joe McDonald, and I think, and what had happened was that they'd done an article called "The Four Forgotten Blanket Men," but during that winter, every 3 out of every 14 days was spent naked. You were already in punishment. You used to get dragged out of the cell to the governor naked. That you were pulled back in again. They took everything out of the cell, and for 3 days, from 7 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, and in that prison, that you were left naked in the cell, and it was absolutely freezing. So they're 2 memories that I have, and again, it's that you were part of a protest. You knew why you were there. You knew what the Brits were about. You knew what they wanted to do, and that they were trying to break the prisoners as a weapon to break the Republican struggle, and the Republicans weren't about that. And it always amazed me, especially in terms of the protest, that they always, as an easy way, they think for an easy way out is pick the prisoners. But in Irish history, you know, where it's the Fenians are right through, that the Irish Republicans have resisted criminalisation.
So obviously, this we spoke around this week. On Monday started the Bobby Sands going on as fast. See, when you were in before you were released, would any of the boys that were on hunger strike, that passed, be with you in the blocks?
Well, I wouldn't. I got it before the hunger strike. In the first hunger strike. Yes, Bobby Sands would have been in the cell facing me. Martin Hurston would have been down the wing from me. There would have been a few that there from the first hunger strike and the second hunger strike. The Dark was in the cell, one of the cells facing me, and yes, you knew them. Kevin Lynch was in the next cell to me, and I always going through Dungiven. I always stop and go in the graveyard and stop at and say a wee prayer at Kevin's grave. See,
just when you were talking there about the Dark, I think something was shared this week by somebody. It was a picture of like a pantomime that did, and it was basically like the Dark was the ballerina or something. So he was like, and you used actually you put it on Twitter, and like she sort of said something like, I mean, somebody must have had some balls put that up there, like would put him as the bloody the ballerina in the pantomime. Like,
well, you have to things that you have to do to survive especially under very extreme circumstances in the H-blocks, and it was the different people organised different things. It was book readings. People who could remember books or films would have told it shouted it out through the door. After the screws had went off the wings, and there was different people. There was the best singer in the wing competition, the worst singer in the wing competition. But the ingenuity. I was in Palestine there a few years ago. About 4 years ago, I was a guy on hunger strike, and it was over the party had sent me over in support, and to speak of it, and we were out with a number of Palestinians. And once they heard you were, and besides being a politician, that you were in the H-blocks and that you were on a blanket protest, they were telling us that we got in these conversations. The 3 of them had been in jail. Now they've been about my age, and they were saying that everything that they'd done in prison, they picked it up from ARA prisoners in the H-blocks, but also the Kurds, the Kurdish people, and he asked me to give him one of my cards, and I gave him it. And what he done is he took out a skin of cigarette paper, and he wrote his business card on the back of the skin and gave me it. So he did, you know. There
you go. So obviously, like you've been through a very tough time for that, right? I mean, so many prison sentences and stints, and you're sort of obviously out now. But when did you sort of eventually sort of settle down and sort of say meet your partner? When did it have been like?
Well, say that I had travelled and had been, as a matter of fact, about today, 40 years ago, I was being sent off to France, and I for a few weeks I travelled around different countries. You were going from house to house, town and city, setting up committees. So you that. But after the hunger strike, and I think a terrible year of 1981, and it's I think it was a really. It still remains, I think, for everybody a very, very emotional year. There's such loss in that year. After that, there you went in, and we went down. I think it might have been the 1982. We went down in the falls, myself and a couple of our ex-prisoners, and started the structure and reorganised Sinn Féin within the falls area. But and that was it. So the conditions, we lived in Divis Flats at the time. My mother, she had a 4-bedroom flat there in St Jude's. So we had made an application, or made an attempt to join the Divis residence. So the conditions were atrocious within it, and we were refused at that time. And obviously I'll not mention any names, but the only reason, and we were told, that said that me and the other person was too high profile, was seen as too high profile within Republicans, and that we couldn't do it. So we bided our time, and that when they went up for election, you got about 15 people turning up at the meetings, but the next general meeting there was 200 people packed in from Divis, and they voted us on the committee. So that kick-started the whole campaign for demolition, and it was later that year that I met Jeanette, and say we're obviously still with each other. Right.
So see, actually talking about Divis, when they actually knocked down?
I think the announcement came. There was individual flats or balconies that were demolished. Whitehall was demolished first. I think Pound was taken down, and maybe first. 1987 was the announcement by the Brits that they were taken down at Divis Flats.
I always remember, I have like one memory of my granny and granny living in flats.
That's right. Yeah,
Cragen,
yes.
Dan,
two lovely people.
Yeah, and he was he done like clothes repairs or something, like a seamstress, not a seamstress, but I remember one. We're in the house, and his room, we done all the sewing stuff, was and the front door or something had been left open, and we're never allowed in his room. It was all, you're not allowed in there, 'cause that's his like work room, and I went in, and the front door was open, and literally the door of his room slammed on my fingers. I can actually still feel it now. And then the same day we were going home, a young guy died in the elevator. So he did.
That's right, yeah.
I remember that happening.
On top of the elevator.
Yeah, was it? He was crouched or something in the elevator.
On top of the elevator, I remember it well. And there was a number. Again, during even the whole protests, or the campaigns, there was a number of young people died. One fell down the chute. A couple of other ones were killed. And it was a dangerous place for people. Over the years. The conditions just deteriorated. And we helped form a wider committee, the Divis Joint Development Committee, and we starting up projects that catered for every level of life within Divis. So it was, although the conditions were bad, what we were doing was just trying to create employment.
Yep.
And it was a fairly exciting period in the campaigns, the people you met up with, and right through to the final the decision. I always remember there was a guy who was on our committee. He was a trainee solicitor. He was from Oma, and the housing executive, when we went first on to the resident association, the housing executive refused to recognise us, and eventually they had to. And we went down. We had offices in St Peter's Row, and we used to go in, and when we raised every meeting, we went in and raised demolition. Right. And they said when they wouldn't discuss demolition, we would get up and walk out. So the first meeting we had done with them, everybody was going round the table, and you had Rosie Kennedy, who was a manager of District 3, which took in Divis, the Falls, and the White Rock. And there was the Horse senior manager and a few other people in there. They had the resident association all lined up, sitting on the thing. And they came to Big Jim, and it says that they were going around, and it says, who are you? And they give their names and then their position within the housing executive. And we give ours. I said, my name's Fran McCann. I live in St Jude's Walk. And I'm a secretary of the Resident Association. And Jim Falconer, it was terrible. There was a big lot of squatting going on at the time. Yeah. And she got up, and she always thought she was funny and her thing. And Jim Falconer says, Jim Falconer, say for toxic, 46 Country Row. And she put her hand up like that to stop I'm speaking. She says, you are the man that moved out of Collin Walk without letting us know. He says, for your information, it was also the man that moved into it without letting us know.
Aye. Right, so we're talking now about getting on the Belfast City Council. So did you were tried once and the first time you weren't elected? Or
in the 85, it was our real first. Alec had been elected in 82. Sean McKnight had been elected, I think, in 83. And there was a full council election, and we put up multiple candidates. And on the 81, which would have been the last election, people were getting elected 900 votes. But I think what wasn't taken into consideration at that time were Republicans standing in the elections. There was always going to be a higher turnout. And with that done, that increased the quota thing. And I got 1,560 first preference votes, and over a prolonged count got lost out in it,
So was Joe Austin your election agent both times you were at the run, was it?
Joe Austin?
Aye.
No, Joe was my election agent, and over in the I think it was the first time.
Right, okay. Right, so as I sort of said there, like when I sort of think back to those sort of days, I was still obviously pretty young, but I sort of see the names you mentioned there, like yourself, Alex Maskey, Sean McKnight, Tom Hartley as well, and Marshall Muller, and I see the late Tish Allen as well. We were in them, like, but I think then the likes of Sammy Wilson and Nigel Dodds were all councillors back in Belfast City Council then, and obviously going by their attitude, like now, obviously over in, like as MPs, whatever, like the sort of bitterness of them, I'd imagine back then it would have been 10 times worse, would have been, like.
Well, it was in 1987. Marcin and myself got elected. There was the Glendenning's husband and wife team, one on the Upper Falls and one on the Lower Falls, had retired from politics, and there was by-elections, and both of us were elected on the by-elections. And I remember going in to the City Hall, and it was one of the first times I was in as a councillor, and get in, and there was a woman came over to me. She had a tin in her hand, and she said what it was for and stuck the tin on my face, and I says no. I was walking away and she called me a Fenian bastard. So that was it. That was it, and that was quite typical, because the City Hall was always a cold place for nationalists and the thing. And what some people don't understand thing, that most of the times you were taking your life in your hand, going down into it. Matter of fact, and we were our room at the City Hall, and it was I don't know when it was. I think it might have been in the mid-90s or something, or we were getting into a meeting, and what hadn't been there was about 20 minutes later, Murray Moore had been in it and left, and to do something, and there was a bomb went off and had been placed on the window and wrecked the room.
Jeez.
And so there was quite a lot of, you always had the cops were coming to your house and they were telling you you're going to be shot dead going to the council meetings, and so it was always you always had to be in a fight. But one of the things that you had to do, you knew that you had to break them. You knew you had to break the protest, the way they treated you. They were shouting at you way back there, Havels in West Belfast, about to shout it. Alec Maskey used to get dogs abuse, especially after he had been shot. They called him wooden stomach. They called him, and this is Wilson, and they'd have walked over and sprayed air freshener around you. and it was to be telling a level wasn't said, and it was actually quite intimidating. And one night during that protest, I remember women coming down to protest about the denial of the right to march into the city centre, and I always remember the viciousness as somebody was swinging on the banner. It was hanging over a balcony, and they used to stand up and they were screaming at the women, screaming at us, and it got to a stage where they were protesting that every time one of us got up to speak, they went up at him as the council chamber and started screaming up. And one day we had our meeting, and it was decided that if they got up to speak, when they went to the bottom of the room when they started screaming at us, we would go down and stand in among them. Now there was 20 odd of them, and I think it might have been Sean McKnight or somebody was on their feet and speaking, and they were screaming through them, and we went down and stood in among them.
Say them all.
And it ended up just a complete free-for-all.
I think, but it's amazing to see now how the party dynamics and the balance of power is now in Belfast, in particular, as what it was way back then.
Yeah.
I mean, do you sort of see some pride in that now? Like, I mean, from
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, we knew even after that the big row in the City Hall, the physical row in it, that was the beginning of the end for the thing. I think that people that have went in after us have done tremendous work, and in terms of funding, in terms of promoting their communities, and getting equal rights for people where it had been denied for many years.
Yep. So obviously the time sort of came then for you to run for the election for the Assembly, right? So I suppose that's probably like a natural progression for a councillor. Obviously you sort of work your way up the ranks in the party, and as a councillor you move on to the next thing. So were you at first co-opted, or did you run for election?
I just run for an election. So
right, okay.
And anybody would tell you, when I stand for an election, people, as a matter of fact, a comrade of mine's in the fall, it's called Jared Fusco, Chips Fusco. Chips used to say, go to maybe the local leadership and say, is there any chance of sending him away and let him come back the day of the count, because I become unbearable.
Oh, yeah.
Hanging on, it's difficult when you allow yourself to stand in an election, you know. And the thing, you always think you're going to lose.
I just spotted this here. My ma gave us up a case of water and just said the big Union Jacker on the side of it. We were sitting drinking it.
I'm drinking it anyway.
That's it. He said for us drinking anyway. So yes. So obviously, when you were afforded the Stormont then first, did you sort of find that it was like a cold house for Republicans when you sort of first went? Was it similar to your experience in the City Hall?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I remember going up, and someone once says to me, "You're not going into a place like that to make enemies. You're going to try and make friends."
Yep.
And after a few days going up into it, you went in, and even some of the security, well, most of them, and most of the people in it, they avoided you. They wouldn't talk to you. Even a lot of people who were Catholics just didn't want to be seen to be to be involved with you. And I remember going in, and the guy was standing at the door, and he went to turn away, and I grabbed him by the hand. I says, "I'm from McCann. I'm Sinn Féin MLA." And I said, "Yes, sir." And I says, "Don't be calling me sir. I'm nobody, sir." And he waited, and about 2 days later I was again, and he called me to the side, and he says to me, "Look, sir," I says, "I've told you before." I says, "I appreciate that, but I have to.
I have to call you now.
I have to.
It's protocol again."
He says, if I get caught, I've been thing. I says, "You do what you have to do, but I prefer if you didn't."
Yeah. But I think, obviously, I would watch a lot of the sessions in Stormont and stuff sometimes, and a lot of them, the people that are, the MLAs are, they're born into it, that they're for this. But I think, Felix, yourself, because you come from such a working class community, I sort of draw a big connections to Tommy Shelby from Peaky Blinders. So obviously, I'm not saying you're a scumbag like him and a bloody racketeer, but I mean, it's that when he obviously was first elected as an MP, whatever it was, on the episode, it was the last series, and at first he was in trying to speak and all, and they're all like, shouting him down or whatever, and then obviously he turned in like a statesman kind of thing, whatever. And how would you sort of find, obviously doing the whole rigmarole of speaker, no, this, yes, sir, and standing up and having to do the whole, like,
Well, the council was a great training ground,
right,
and I think it held you in good stead when you went up there. When you get into the neck, especially, you can make a speech, and what they do, and I learned this early on, or we learned it early on, is that you can get up in the middle of somebody making a speech and says, "Excuse me, would you give way?"
right,
And if they want, they can give way, and that's where you make your political points.
right,
And
okay.
they used to do that all the time. And then you know who not to give way to. But that's when people get used to doing that there, again, it's probably when you just go in, it's the most intimidating place in the world, because you're expected to get up and do that. You're expected to get up and make speeches, and some people say you're stuck up in that place, but it can be very difficult, very hard work. That you're on committees, you're doing your plenaries on Monday and Tuesdays. You're doing meetings with the many different sectors. It could be about economics. It could be about social issues. It could be about housing. So you're constantly working, and that would be the same especially for our ministers. If you look at the work that Conor Murphy is doing, and trying to provide the money to do some really good stuff during this pandemic. You look at Carol Nicole and Deirdre Hargay, the stuff that they have done as Minister for Communities.
Yep.
And like, so there's that, but it's always those difficulties that you have, and it's getting up and doing all that, working at that, doing your meetings to do it, preparing for your for your plenaries, preparing for your things. If there's bills going through, then they could be fairly extensive. It's about reading the bills. It's about knowing what people are coming on about. So it keeps you on your toes.
I think obviously at the minute there's sort of like I know there's going to be people listening here now. I know a lot of people listen to this podcast and on a Sunday, and a lot of followers. There is a lot of ones bitterly opposed to Sinn Féin. I know, well, obviously they have their point of view and whatever stuff. But what would you sort of say then the current progress of obviously when we're looking for? Obviously, I think it's a sort of foregone conclusion now that we're not going to sort of get the obviously United Ireland everybody sort of thought we were going to get, but whatever we are going to get, that's going to have to include the unionists in it somehow. So, I mean, how do you see the way things are going at the minute? Like,
well, Roy, it was always going to have to include the unionists. And I am convinced that we're as close today to United Ireland than we ever were. I think that some of the campaigns that have been ongoing about a border poll, people say, well, you'll not win the border poll. Who's saying that? We can't win a border poll.
Yep.
And you can sit in a wee dark room and talk about what might have happened, or you can be out in the street saying what can happen, and you have to be part of the can happens people, and that'll bring you forward. People choose to walk away, or people choose not to buy into it, and it becomes for them an anti-Sinn Féin thing. And for many of them, they're more anti-Sinn Féin than they are anti-Brit or anti-thing. So, it has no real impact on our ability to deliver for our people. And I'm still, and many of us are, still good campaigners in terms of social issues about our friends with the services that we provide. And it's just sad. That's all I can say. It would be better if they put their energy into trying to create something good, and that is a United Ireland. Many of our comrades died for United Ireland. What our job is doing is to making sure that what they died for becomes a reality.
Right. So obviously, we're going to. You sort of mentioned this in detail when Joe done the interview. Last year, obviously, you had sort of some pretty bad news regarding your own health, and you actually went to the Irish News and done a story on it. You chose to come out. So I think that one of the big things is obviously a lot of women, probably include myself in this here, is like men are like, they see themselves, oh, I don't need to go to the doctor, and like, it's no, I haven't got time even, like, I just don't want to go off work to go to the doctor. But where in your case, your sort of partner said, listen, you're going to the doctor, and that's it. So tell us a wee bit actually what happened after the first time you went to see him then.
Well, I went, and my local doctor had gathered there was something wrong, and could just over there's two things I'd like to say tonight is that if people are having difficulties with what they call the waterworks or whatever, and please don't wait. I waited for over a year and suffered the consequences of it. Go right away. Go to your doctor and get it checked out. And if you go early enough, it may be nothing. But if you go early enough, then when I went, it was too late for me in terms of diagnosis. But I ended up with a big doctor, and Jeanette had says to me, I was supposed to have an appointment with a doctor, say on a Wednesday, but for 3 or 4 days I'd been pacing the floor 24 hours a day. I couldn't move, and she says, right, hospital. And I went over, and to be honest, I hadn't went to the toilet. And when I got up to the hospital, they rushed me in, they put a bag in to start draining the fluid. And the next thing was moved right away to the city. And my kidney had collapsed, and I only have one kidney.
Right.
And I remember the doctor coming in, and they were telling me right up, you're very, very serious here. And the doctor, a big Fermanagh doctor, came to me and said, Jeanette was sitting at the side of the bed, and he says to me, what made you come to the hospital? And I says, she did. And he looked at her, and he says, you just saved his life. If had to wait another 24 hours, he'd have been dead.
Jesus.
And so that was it. And that was just the prostrate end of it.
Right.
He says, your prostrate is completely blocked. There's no fluid getting through. He says, but what I'm going to do, he says, I'm going to get you in, and I'm going to punch a hole in that prostrate to free everything. And this word, within weeks I'd been in to get an operation. But as part of that, they wanted just to do a biopsy, and I was to do that. So the doctor had done the prostate operation, also done the biopsy when he was in doing anything. So they'd sent for me, and I went up, and I went in, and the doctor had says to me, look, I'm really sorry to tell you, he says, there's only one way I can say this. He says, you have prostate cancer, it's incurable. He says, and I looked at him, and I says, look, my partner's out there, can she come in? And she always says to me, she knew right away when he came out and shouted for Jeanette that there was something wrong. And she says to her, and she's good at that thing. And it's amazing all your life that you deal with people, you deal with statutory bodies fighting for people, and you can't talk for yourself in circumstances like that or thing. And she was asking all the questions, and he just says, look, it's incurable. He says, but he says we can work with it, and then trying to thing. And I went through a bone scan, and about 3 or 4 weeks later, and they sent for me again. They says, look, it's much worse than we thought it was. You have still prostate cancer, but you have it in 8 or 9 different places, in 8 or 9 different bones. But I'm so the people had been saying to me, and people have been actually wonderful. The party has been absolutely great to me, and trying to obviously feel comfortable taking some time out of the assembly. I still do my constituency stuff from the house, but everybody's been. And somebody had says to me, Fra, would you do an interview with the Irish News? And I did. And what the journalist done was not only tied the prostate thing, but tied the politics of it and also.
Right, okay.
It was brilliant. So whatever happens, it happens.
And did you get good feedback, man? Did people rather say, listen, we're glad you done that there? Like it was.
I thought it was people. I have had quite a number of people have come up to me, and mostly women, saying, "You after I read your thing, I made him go to the doctors, and they've caught it in time, or they're able to deal with it. And I feel good. I really, really feel good about that. Even within the past couple of days, there's a guy had said he'd read my article and that his wife. And it's all men are funny people. They don't want to go and they don't want to get these things checked out. They think it's going to be all right, but it doesn't be all right. But if you go to the doctor and check it out and get the thing, it can be all right.
Too late then, like.
Yeah, it can be all right.
Right, well, Fred, listen, we're going to do one more song. You've picked here, so tell us what one you want to do for the last song.
This land is my land. This land is your land. From the Northern Highlands to the Western Highlands.
So what's the story behind this song? Why you want to get it going for?
It's a Celtic song. And when I say it's a Celtic song, I've been a Celtic supporter all my life. And a matter of fact, from I was a child, I remember sitting in the house over an old black and white TV. I was 14, watching the European Cup final, and the house was packed. And it was living Albert Street, same street as your mother. Right. And everybody in the falls was in. And they were watching it, and when it ended, people went out in their thousands. But cut a long story short, the first game I was ever at was the 1966-67 season. Right. And it was August 1967. Celtic had just won the European Cup, and they were playing Manchester United in a pre-season friendly. And what you had on the field at that time was the 67 winners in Celtic and the 68 winners that hadn't won it yet in Manchester United. Right. And Celtic beat them 4-1. But to watch Jimmy Johnson playing on the field, it was absolutely magnificent. But I'd always been hooked on it. And I've been over in Park. My dad and my mum wouldn't let me go on my own. So some members of the Celtic Supporters Club back then would have been friends of my father, and would have took me over, you know. And you know, you were as a child, as a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, getting in around the garbles and kind of thing. I remember when you got off the boat, the boat left at 10 o'clock. You were in the Glasgow for 6. You had a football, and you were up outside Parkhead playing football outside Old Parkhead, or in the Glasgow Green down playing football.
See then, like the stadium was much bigger, like wasn't it? It was all standing more or less. Like you had times you had thousands and thousands more than it holds now. Yeah, actually, and I remember going to the Scottish League Cup final, and it was 120 odd thousand, I think, at it. But I was, I say, young then. And and I've never lost my love for Celtic. And I get I get into this argument, debate at it. You know that I never look upon Celtic as a Scottish football team. They're an Irish football team based in Scotland. And if you have the person that cut the first sod and Celtic Park was an Irish Republican. So just while we were talking about Celtic there, obviously a massive fan like myself. How do you sort of, obviously this season's been like a total disaster, like, but what way do you see the way Lenny's been treated, like, by a lot of the people this year, like?
I think when I heard there was people protesting outside the park and some of the stuff they were saying, I think it was discussing, I think, that he was a loyal servant of the club. And that he gave us all, and when he was a player and when he was a manager. I think this year, I don't know what has happened with and there's probably blame, but blame is all round. It's within the board, and it's within the changing room. And it's like everything else in life, you know, when you're down, you just pick yourself up the next day and think, I'm unhappy that we didn't get the 10 in a row, because it would have meant everything in life to the people that support Celtic, to not only in Glasgow or Scotland or Ireland, you know, but around the world. I was lucky enough to have got a ticket for Seville.
Oh, did you?
I was at the. I'll not even tell you a story how I got the ticket, but I got to Seville, and it was a very emotional. It was like a religious experience. Let's say out there. When you got into Seville, I'd stayed. Myself and a friend, an RX prisoner, had stayed with a guy in Spain down around one of the resorts. But I remember going up into the outside the park that afternoon and looking, there was a big boulevard that run right down into the city, and there was tens of thousands going up a motorway. There was thousands of buses going up towards the thing, and it's just.
Because I just always remember the flags in that stadium, like just like all around, because it was actually at a running track.
Yeah.
And there's a few people that are commenting on Facebook and YouTube just asking, who do you fancy like for the next manager? Like, who do you like to see?
Well, obviously they need to look about the get a good manager in. I think what they have to do is give the person. Neil Lennon's been there for quite a while. The opportunity. My favourite drinking place in the town is Biddle's.
Biddle's, yeah.
John, if you're listening to this,
the Amigos, the famous bar.
if you're listening to this, John, I love you. Here, that'll be worth a couple of pints when we get back at it again. But Lenny came in a couple of times and had a drink in it, and went up and got our photos taken. But it's sad. It's the end of a sad journey for him. And I have no doubt that somewhere soon he'll pop up at another club. But whoever it has, they deserve our support. And then obviously there needs to be some type of changes that takes place. You need to have a manager that knows what the club, not only what who can play for the club, but what the club it's about, what their history is about.
Well, I was slaughtered last week, right? I put this on my friend Niall's page, the Glasgow Celtic Champions page, and then I put it on my own Facebook page, and I put up about Mick McCarthy. I says I think he'd be a great shout, just because as he's flying with Cardiff now, like I could get promoted, like. And I just think because I'm being an ex-player and stuff, I mean, whatever, and everybody's like, what? McCarthy? I'm like, Jesus, get your own drugs and all, whatever. And like, I says, you never know.
Well, Mick McCarthy was there before. And again, sometimes it's difficult to go back to a club for a club to get you back. I just can't remember what he was like as the manager of the club. But as you say, he's doing well with Cardiff. But who is it? Is it Eddie Howe or somebody who used to be a manager of
Bournemouth? Well, I reckon they've been talking to him and stuff and whatever.
And he had worked wonders at Bournemouth. They're talking about some international managers being brought in, but there needs to be. See, I'm also a great believer in that. Neil Lennon was a manager. Okay, the buck stops there, but when you have players there who I believe don't even try when they go onto a pitch. I think it's really shocking.
It's hard to imagine when you think of a player doing that, but when you look at a lot of this season, especially, you're going like, what are you like doing? I mean, is it like he just coming out to run with the field? Like, I mean, there's no heart or nothing from a lot of them this season. It's just heartbreaking to watch.
You get really annoyed watching it on TV, and I say I haven't been over that much in a while. I was lucky enough, and the club that I was a member of, the year of Seville, in the Celtic Awards dinner, and that's the dinner that the awards that the club makes. I was lucky enough to go to it, and the way it happened was that the guy who was secretary of our club had phoned me up and says, look, we've bought 2 tables at the Celtic Awards dinner. Yeah. He says, let me know you're going. The flights are only £15 each. And
Ryanair special.
He says, well, I book me. And then he phoned me back the next morning and says, I forgot to tell you the tickets are £100 each into the place. And my daughter was 18. Orla was 18. And her, Jeanette and myself went to it. And Martin O'Neill was doing the after dinner speaker at it. The next table there is a big Bobo Baldi at it. You had Larson, you had all the players in. They were over getting things signed. You were talking to them, and so it was a great. Somebody phoned a bomb scare into the hotel while the thing was going on, and we all had to go outside the stand.
Orla's actually just commenting here. She says, "My ma's trying to poison you with British water," or so she's like. But listen, folks, so we're gonna wrap it up here. So we'll do one more song, and this is we're going to do the Charlie and the Boys version, seeing that it is the Celtic connection. So this is Charlie and the Boys with "This Land Is Your Land."
is your land, this land is my land. From the Northern Highlands to the Western Islands, from the hills of Kerry to the streets of Derry, singing this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From the Northern Highlands to the Western Islands, from the hills of Kerry to the streets of Derry, singing this land was made for you and me.
There we go, folks. So listen, we're going to wrap it up. I have to say some great song choices, and I say, folks, anybody that's asked sort of questions throughout this, I had the interview has been laid out, you know, so just in case you think I've been ignorant and didn't ask for any of your questions, it's sort of, I think it's nearly 2.5 hours now getting through this, so I've been asking all the questions throughout, would have probably another hour and a half, so listen, thank you very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Just a wee comment on the last song there. That, you know, that I hadn't heard it before, and I was at Parkhead, and I listened to 40,000, 50,000 Celtic supporters singing it. I have to say the hairs in the back of my neck stood up, and you know, and when you get it, and I'm known to render an old Rebels song or two myself, you know, and the thing. So thanks very much for inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
No problem. Hope it's not too warm for you in here. It's pretty.
I never friends in Glasgow, but for Beale and all the people that I know there here.
Right, well, listen, folks, we're going to wrap it up. So again, folks, I'm back on Sunday, okay, from 1 o'clock to 4, and the guest this week is Kieran Moorfield, of course, Brian Moorfield's son, and Kieran has his own band, Catalpa, so Kieran's going to be on about 2 o'clock. So yes, and just to give you a wee bit of a few other guests that we have coming up. I'm on St. Paddy's Day this year from 1 to 4 as well. Obviously, I'm off work and there's nothing happening, so we're going to do a wee St. Paddy's Day session. Then the week after that, we'll have a great singer from around Killarney, Maeve Walsh, who's like a superstar at the minute now, so we'll have her on coming in for an interview. And then obviously I've been teasing you all for a few weeks, folks, but I sort of announced it last night. So Easter Sunday, make sure you all tune in Easter Sunday, and the big guest is Derek Warfield, legendary singer from the Wolf Tones, folks. And of course now Derek Warfield and the Young Wolf Tones. So Derek will be on about 2 o'clock on Easter Sunday. So folks, that's us. I'll see you all later in Chucky Arla.
You have been listening to Rebel Podcast of Rory Carson. To listen to this and past episodes again, and to also check out future episodes, keep an eye on our official SoundCloud page. We are also available on all social media outlets. Just search Rebel Podcast. Bhí sé bhgéisteach an sin leis an fád cruailí Rebel le Rory McCarson. Le héisteach le seo agus hir hagran a ríis, agus na hagran atá le teach, caisúil ar COFIGL sugin ar SoundCloud, agus táid ar fáil ar gach cinneal ardan ar na main thuirseachta. Ní mór ditch ag fád cruailí Rebel a Curda.